All right. Good evening, everyone. Wasn't that a great reception out there? You all probably weren't watching the weather report, but it was forecasting rain through the whole time we were out there, and we lucked out. We dodged a bullet. So, good evening. Welcome to the 44th Annual Semiconductor Industry Award Dinner and the 30th anniversary of the conveyance of the esteemed Noyce Award. I'm John Neufer, SIA President and CEO. On behalf of the SIA Board of Directors, thank you for joining us tonight. I think I speak for all of us when I say it's so great to be back in person for this year's event. Before we start dinner, I'd like to recognize the following platinum and gold sponsors. Their support has helped make tonight's program possible: AMD, Deutsche Bank, IBM, Intel, Micron, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Salesforce, Western Digital, Global Foundries, the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, PwC, Samsung, Skywater, and Texas Instruments. A huge thank you to all of our incredible sponsors. Just want to make sure we got him here. Yes, I think so. There we go. Yes. And a special welcome to two very distinguished governors in attendance tonight: Governor Eric Holcomb of Indiana and Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. Thank you. We had a very animated discussion with the two governors at the end of our board meeting this afternoon. So with that, please enjoy the dinner. We will resume tonight's program shortly. Thank you.
In a year of change, one thing remained constant: the importance of the semiconductor. While the world continued to grapple with the global pandemic, semiconductor-enabled technologies allowed us to remotely work, study, treat illness, order goods online, and stay connected. As much of the planet shut down, semiconductors kept the world moving. And they helped begin making the world healthy again. Without the semiconductors that power the world's most advanced supercomputers, the unprecedented rapid development of COVID-19 vaccines would not have been possible. Despite very strong chip production in 2021, the world was confronted by a widespread global semiconductor shortage. The semiconductor industry worked hard to keep pace by substantially increasing production. In fact, by the middle of 2021, more semiconductors were shipped on a monthly basis than at any point in history. This shortage has cast a light on the critical importance of semiconductors and the need to strengthen domestic chip production and innovation over the long term. The governments of other countries have realized the importance of supporting domestic manufacturing and readily offer incentives. The U.S. government has taken notice. Leaders in Washington are considering broad competitiveness legislation, including $52 billion to bolster domestic chip manufacturing, research, and design, as well as a semiconductor investment tax credit, policies SIA has been strongly championing. Now's the time to get these critical initiatives across the finish line. Government and industry must work together to usher in a resurgence of domestic innovation and leadership, to fortify our national security and allow our digital economy to thrive. Together, we can help realize a bright future, built on semiconductors.
I don't know who picks the walk-on music, but the first one was me, The Cure. That last one, Dan, I don't know if that was you. Good evening. Thank you once again for being here tonight. We have an outstanding program planned for you. In just a few minutes, we'll welcome SIA's new chair, Cristiano Amon of Qualcomm. Later, we'll recognize two Stanford University professors for their tremendous work advancing semiconductor research. Finally, we'll present SIA's highest honor, the Noyce Award, to NVIDIA founder Jensen Huang. We'll also We'll also have video greetings from a couple of surprise guests, so you don't want to slip out of this dinner early. Well, after a long couple of years of social distancing and Zoom meetings, I think we can all agree that gathering in person tonight sure feels like a very, very welcome breath of fresh air. The last time we gathered here was in November of 2019. Since then, it's been a challenging time across the world, to put it mildly. I'm very, very proud to be associated with this industry, which, led by the leaders in this very room, rose to this once-in-a-century challenge and helped everyone across the globe better cope with the pandemic. It has been a seminal moment for us as an industry, I think. So during the pandemic, chip-enabled technologies have allowed us to work and study from home, stay connected with friends and loved ones, and, very importantly, develop the vaccines that have kept many millions of people healthy and allowed us to be here tonight. But significant challenges remain. Most notably, the global chip shortage still grips many sectors. The shortage was brought on by rapidly rising demand along with COVID-induced supply chain disruptions. Semiconductor companies have responded, stretching existing chip manufacturing fabs to their production limits and accelerating existing plants production for new ones. As a result, the global chip industry is on pace to ship far more semiconductor units in 2021 than during any year in history, and by quite a lot. And the years ahead figure to be even stronger. In fact, global demand for chip manufacturing is projected to increase by nearly 60% over the next decade. So we know more chips will be researched and designed and more fabs will be built. The question is, where? What countries will be home to these new chip production plants and innovation and the job creation and economic growth that come with all this? Other countries' governments have invested boldly to attract semiconductor companies to their shores. The US government has, until now, largely refrained from this. As a result, only 12% of the world's chips are built in the US today, down from 37% in 1990. And we face challenges to our design ecosystem, including in the workforce and research arenas. SIA's message to policymakers in Washington is simple. The US government needs to level the playing field by investing in domestic semiconductor research, design, and manufacturing. Doing so will strengthen America's economy and national security while also making US chip supply chains more resilient, more diversified over the long term. Congress and the administration have taken steps to do just that. The Senate has passed $52 billion to fund the Chips for America Act. Now the House must follow suit, and legislation needs to go to the President to be signed into law. An historic federal investment on that scale would create hundreds of thousands of American jobs and add hundreds of millions of dollars to the US economy. We're also making progress in Washington on a semiconductor investment tax credit, legislation called the FABS Act, that contains a tax credit for chip manufacturing is advancing in the House of Representatives. As we work to increase semiconductor manufacturing in the US, SIA also continues to work to strengthen the entire ecosystem. That means advancing policies to maintain US leadership in chip technology and chip design. We are also continuing our advocacy and other industry priorities, including funding for basic research, expanding access to global markets, attracting and retaining the world's top STEM workforce, and protecting our valuable intellectual property. And we will continue working to expand the investment tax credit in the FABS Act to, at some point, also cover semiconductor design. SIA's ability to take forward our priorities in Washington is the product of our strong and growing coalition of semiconductor industry leaders. All rowing in the same direction, the collective unity of purpose has made all the difference. This year alone, we've added 14 new major SIA member companies, many of whom are represented here tonight. We now represent 98% of U.S. semiconductor sector and a large and growing share of the global industry. As I conclude, let me say that we gather tonight at a time of great challenges and opportunities for our industry. Since its inception, we have thrived on overcoming challenges and seizing opportunities. With the united industry and the support of the many leaders here tonight, I have no doubt we'll do so again. Working together, we'll continue to build a stronger industry and realize a bright and hopeful future, all built on semiconductors. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to share a message from a true ally and champion for our industry in Washington, and that's U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be with you at the Semiconductor Industry Association Annual Award Dinner. Thank you, John, for your remarkable leadership, and congratulations to the new SIA Board Chair, Cristiano Amon, and the Noyce Award winner, Jensen Huang. Today, the United States faces two crises in the semiconductor industry: an immediate chip shortage and a long-term threat to U.S. leadership in the supply chain. Addressing both challenges is a top priority for the Biden administration. As you all know, semiconductors are the building blocks that power our modern digital economy, from our smartphones to our cars to medical equipment. America created the semiconductor industry, and 20 years ago, we produced nearly 40% of all chips. Today, as you all know, we account for only 12% of global production and produce 0% of the most advanced chips. This creates economic and national security problems. As we emerge from the pandemic, these chip shortages will only become more acute unless we act now. We need to secure the semiconductor supply chain and make more chips in America. I'm pressing Congress every day to fund the CHIPS Act, which will enable the Department of Commerce to invest $52 billion in domestic semiconductor production. Now that we've found our path forward on the Build Back Better agenda, I'm hopeful we can make progress on funding for chips. These investments are long overdue. Other countries have been making investments in semiconductors and research and development for years, and we're falling behind. We also know the government can't fix the issue by ourselves. We need strong public-private partnerships with companies like SIA members if we're going to get the job done. With closer collaboration moving forward, America will lead the semiconductor industry once again. And that's good for American workers, American businesses, and the American economy. I'd ask you to stay in close touch with us at the Department of Commerce. We look forward to working together with you to revitalize our semiconductor industry.
I must say I'm a bit relieved. All of her facts and figures were consistent with the ones I was throwing out there. If they weren't, I'm afraid some people at this table might not be very happy with the job we're doing in Washington. Anyway, a big thanks to Secretary Raimondo for those kind words and her unwavering support for our industry. We very much appreciate her efforts and the work of our many friends in Congress and other industry champions in Washington. Now, I'm pleased to recognize the man who will be and has been working closely with Secretary Raimondo and other leaders in Washington and across the globe to promote policies that help strengthen our industry. Cristiano Amon began his Qualcomm career in 1995, is that correct? Thank you. As an engineer, and during his tenure, he has helped shape the strategic direction of the company in important leadership roles. Prior to becoming CEO, Cristiano served as president of Qualcomm. In that role, he steered development of a leading and differentiated product roadmap, spearheaded Qualcomm's 5G strategy, and drove the expansion and diversification of the business to serve multiple industries. Cristiano's strong background in engineering and deep knowledge of the industry make him an ideal champion for SIA's priorities, both in Washington and in capitals around the world. In a moment, I'll welcome Cristiano to the stage to say a few words. Then after his initial remarks, he'll be joined on stage by Molly Wood for a fireside chat about our industry. Molly is host of Marketplace Tech on America Public Media and co-host of the podcast Make Me Smart. We very much appreciate her joining us tonight to chat with Cristiano about the strength and promise of our industry. Before I welcome Cristiano to the stage, I'd like to recognize his predecessor as SIA Chair, Bob Bruggeworth, CEO of Corvo. Bob could not be here tonight, but his leadership as SIA Chair over the past year during a very busy and challenging time is greatly appreciated by all of us. Let us give Bob a round of applause in absentia. With that, please help me in welcoming our friend, Qualcomm CEO and 2022 SIA Chair, Cristiano Amon.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Like John said, I'm also thrilled to see a lot of you in person. This is a great experience. I'm sure many of us have been waiting for. I'm really honored, and it's a privilege to be serving as SIA Chair in 2022. Also, it's been a long time since the SIA had a chair from the fabless industry. And I think for all of our colleagues from the fabless industry right now, I think besides the very important United States semiconductor manufacturing, I think the fabless industry is also a very strong part of the great semiconductor industry we have in this country. As John said, I also want to thank Bob for his leadership during what's been an incredibly challenging period for the semiconductor industry. We've been through a lot, and if there's one silver lining of what happened in the past few years, no matter where you go, whether it's in the grocery store, the gas station, anybody you meet, they probably know now that chips are important. Everybody knows that chips are important, and it's something that we always knew. And the industry has made important strides over the last 12 months, but there's a lot more work to be done. We need to ensure the sustained competitiveness of the United States semiconductor ecosystem, while also communicating how the ability of U.S. companies to sell to customers across the globe strengthens the resilience of the global supply chain. And it will drive United States innovation and R&D. There's much we can do together to continue educating those outside the industry of the benefits they realize as a result of advancements in semiconductor technology. Advancements that are critical to realizing our vision of a world where everyone and everything can be intelligently connected. I really look forward to working with you and the rest of the SIA board to address these important issues. Thanks again, John. Much appreciated. Now let's welcome Molly Wood to the stage so we can have a conversation. Molly, come on up. I think Molly's getting the best song. Huh.
I know, I like my song, I do. And I want to echo your remarks that there was a time in the not too distant past when this dinner would not have been considered the sexiest thing happening in the entire valley. And tonight I think we can agree that it is.
Yes.
Nice to see you again. Cristiano and I were talking and realizing that the last time that I did an in-person interview at a major event was with Cristiano.
At
and
CES?
This at CES in 2019, and this is my first major in-person event since the pandemic. So you're the bookend.
And that's a coincidence.
I know.
To make it
It's
all
a total
more
coincidence,
special.
but we're connected for life.
That's awesome.
No big deal, no pressure. I know we don't have a lot of time, and so I do want to congratulate you on Qualcomm's excellent year and,
Thank
of
you.
course, becoming the chair of this organization. It seems like, I'm going to ask you about yourself first, and then I'm just going to dive right into
All right.
how we fix all these other things. It seems like diversification was the key not only to your recent successful earnings, but also to riding out the chip shortage. What can you tell us about what seems somewhat obvious in some ways, right? Which is you should have multiple streams of production.
Look, yes, like every company had to deal with this crisis and act in a different way. We were very fortunate that we had the engineering scale to pretty much look for every possible capacity and multi-source and design our chips. Our team was under a lot of pressure because sometimes you plan an engineering roadmap, and I think process technology that you select, especially the leading node, is a very important decision. And you have a very tight schedule because you can't move holidays, you cannot change Christmas, you cannot change Chinese New Year to launch phones. And all of a sudden, that same team has to design the product again, and maybe in a different process technology. And we've been very busy, and it helped us had the ability to, navigate through this crisis. And as a result, I think we end up having a roadmap that is now multi-source in a number of different technologies, but it's also important to highlight the incredible support that we receive from the foundries in parallel and try to work with us to make use of available capacity at the time. But you're correct. I think in general, it's a very important conversation about diversification of the supply chain, including geographical diversification of the supply chain.
So let's talk about that in the context of domestic production, which is a big topic here and everywhere else. The other thing I think a lot of people learn, not only that chips are important, but also how hard they are to make and how expensive and difficult it is to build a foundry. Congress is talking about maybe $52 billion, which I think a lot of experts will say is not enough. How realistic is it that we could quickly spin up this production in the United States, and what do we do in the interim?
Okay, it's a very good question. Look, $52 billion for sure is not enough, but it's a great start. And I think the key thing is we need to get started. Timing is of the essence. It is difficult to make semiconductors. I think there is a lot of investment. In general, you have a lot of investments in designing semiconductors. That's what companies like Qualcomm and many of our peers do as part of the fabless industry. Also, you need to spend a lot of R&D and time in manufacturing semiconductors. It takes time. Also, it's a very dynamic industry. It's one that needs scale. You can spend a lot of time building a particular technology to find yourself that by the time you're done, you have to move to the next one. So you need to the global scale. We have to look within the context of different regions get specialized in different technology, and you look at the overall global supply chain because that's what the industry is. Mm-hmm. But I think the message to you is it is difficult, but we have to get started. And Qualcomm, we've been very open and public about it. We will be more than willing to partner with anyone that is willing to do manufacturing in the United States, and we'll be, looking to engage and partner. At the end of the day, I think we all need, as an industry, a strong, a resilient, and a diversified supply chain.
What do you think? I'm glad you brought up regional specialization. What do you think, and during your tenure with SIA, what would you push for the U.S. to specialize in? We've talked about R&D. There are certain types. I mean, obviously, there are a million different types of chips we could focus on manufacturing. Do you think that focus is important, or should we just pop stuff up everywhere?
That's the most difficult question to answer. I'm sure many of my
we have 10
colleagues
minutes.
would agree. Yeah.
So I'm sure we can get to the bottom of it.
So I'll give you a practical example that we lived through in the peak of the semiconductor supply chain crisis. We'll work very, very hard. We'll do everything possible. We'll do dual design. We'll beg. And we find the ability to get the wafers for the leading node. Just to find ourselves that it's missing a power management IC for technology that was 20 years old, and you can't ship anything. So at the end of the day, I think the real answer to the question is The semiconductor industry is important. There are different technologies for different processes. There are processes for advanced computation, whether it's advanced computation for the data center, for the edge device, and you're going to be also, for that, you're going to be looking for the leading node technology. But at the same time, you have RF for communications. You have electrification of vehicles. They're going to need a lot of technology that can deal with high voltage. So there is not a simple answer to the question. We need all of the key semiconductor technologies.
But come on, if you could pick one, wouldn't you pick one?
How much more time do we have out 10 minutes?
So where do you think the future growth will be in this industry?
That's actually a somewhat easier question to answer than the prior one.
I'll get back
Thank you for the softball. I appreciate it. So I will highlight a few examples. First, we are moving towards a cloud-connected economy. So the cloud is going to continue to grow. You just look of the projections just on capital expenses alone from all the cloud companies is in the order of 35% year-over-year growth. More and more data is going to continue to go to the cloud. We're going to do a lot of cloud computing. So you're going to have continued growth of the data center, and I think the data centers will continue to multiply. So that is going to require, advanced technology for, advanced computing. That's also happening in what we call the edge. A lot of the devices right now are becoming smarter, are becoming intelligent with on-device intelligence. And I can give you a number of examples. I'll pick one. And the reason I'm going to pick this one because that one that became front and center in the conversation of supply chain crisis. And I think we all learned that is probably the industry with more lobbying power than any other industry in the world, which is the automotive industry, right?
Yeah.
So,
which is now, I believe, turning to you to help them out.
So if you look what happened with the car today, the car is becoming really a computer, an advanced computer on wheels. So the semiconductors that the industry wants today to make cars today, when we just look in a short period of time in the future, the amount of chips into the car are going to multiply by 10x, if not 20x. So that's an example of how much more we're going to need semiconductor, and that's just one industry. And I can go to what's happening with the transformation of retail, what has happened with the transformation of energy and gas, all of the utilities, manufacturing. So we have the floor for digital is going up, and what the pandemic did really accelerated that. It's if I have to describe this in a very simple way, companies quickly connect all their people, send everybody home, connected all their people. That increased the consumption of semiconductors because enterprise transformation of the home and all those things that happen. But then they realized they need to connect all their assets. Like their focus on the edge is about connecting all of those billions of devices out there. They're part of the digital transformation of those enterprises. They need chips for that. So the reason I say that it's an easy answer to the question, I cannot pick a single industry today when they look at their plans of digital transformation or being part of the cloud-connected economy, how they bring AI not only on the data center, but now on the edge devices. They are not going to need more semis and more chips. So that's probably one of the greatest opportunities for this industry that we ever seen.
I wonder how you imagine, back to slightly harder questions, the industry itself changing in response to what we have just seen. Certainly we're going to talk about securing a domestic supply of semiconductors and manufacturing. Are we also going to have a different kind of conversation? You just, shouted out to your fabless friends here. Are we going to have a different kind of conversation about fabless versus controlling all the parts of your supply chain?
Look, I don't think so. I think we that are in the semiconductor industry have been talking about IDM and fabless model, and I think the answer at the end of the day, it's all of those combinations are valid. I think they're merit to certain industries, certain companies, certain products to have an IDM model, and their merits for you to be a foundry and a fabless horizontal model. I don't think there is one model that fit all the needs. We continue to believe in horizontal, I think, platforms for both manufacturing. That's what we do with our chips. We build a horizontal platform that to serve many different customers. So at the end of the day, the industry will continue to evolve and the market will continue to decide what's the better approach.
So the loss of control in the last year and a half was not scary enough. It was.
No. Here's another way.
I was terrified.
Yeah. Here's another way to answer the question. I'm taking a little bit of a tangent on what you ask, but it's kind of related to the difficult question you ask, and I feel I need to give you a better answer. It's very difficult for you to pick one, let's say one country and say, we're going to have every single semiconductor technology that we need. That's a very difficult proposition. That's why, for example, the conversation that happened between the United States and Europe and other regions about identifying how to incentivize the industry together may be the better answer. The real answer is you're going to have to continue to evolve the industry with the investment in R&D, with the scale that is going to be required, and you're going to need global demand. If you don't have global demand, for example, on a leading technology, you may not be able to quickly amortize the investment cost and have the R&D to do the next one. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it's about finding a way within our global semiconductor industry that we have enough investments, we have enough capacity, they're in different locations, and we all work together with a very strong semiconductor supply chain.
Options, basically. In our last few minutes, I want to ask you, you just became the first chip company with a market cap over $100 million to commit to becoming carbon neutral. How important do you think that is as a blueprint for the rest of the industry, and how important is climate in your business going forward?
Look, at the end of the day, in general, without debating all the merits, I think
which merits do we want to debate?
No, without debating the merits of what companies are doing, what companies are not doing. I think our choice is we need to take sustainability serious. And, at the end of the day, it's just about how much resources you consume, how you can become efficient, and then if you can have a positive impact on climate and the society, it's the right thing to do. And we've just been focused on this. There's a lot that we have done over the years that we didn't get credit for. The smartphone has been one of the greatest contributors, I think, to reduce carbon footprint. If you just look at the number of consumer electronic devices that are being integrated in the smartphone, you see how much people with communications in general had reduced distances and travels. It took a pandemic to get to a video telephony as a killer application. Personally, I'm going to say this, I started my career, it's going to show my age, but I always worked with telecom or worked with wireless. Back in ISDN, people were thinking the killer application would be video telephony. We all watched Back to the Future 2, and you saw the big AT&T screen with video telephony. We try in 3G, we try in 4G. It took a pandemic to get it done, but now Zoom became a verb in every single country. And if you look at that impact in reducing cost of transportation, also carbon footprint. So I think this industry has done a lot and will probably continue to do it. It's good to set the example.
Yep. We have 53 seconds left. You're really going all in on metaverse?
Look, we invest.
Are we doing that? Are we doing that? Show of hands.
No, thank you for asking this question. We've been talking about virtual reality and augmented reality when it wasn't popular. Yeah. I think we've been, for more than 10 years, we talk about we have this technology, we're going to do XR, VR, AR. The investor said, okay, tell me about your other big customer. I don't want to hear about it. But the reality is there was a lot of fundamental technologies that require for you to connect yourself, whether you wear glasses, they have to be very low power, you have to be untethered. That's kind of what we've been working on. And we always had the belief, if you go look what we've been saying inside the company for the 10 years, we believe that augmented reality devices may be the next computing platform. And we talk about PC as one computing platform, phone, another computing platform, may be the next one. It is not far-fetched. It's no longer a technology challenge. It's not far-fetched for you to think that you're going to have a glass as a companion of your phone. Mm-hmm. And just, look, I don't want to spend a lot of time. I think there's
I
going to be.
wound him up with 53 seconds left. I
Yeah,
didn't
yes.
know.
But you can have, there are all those different versions of the metaverse. What do you think? There's things for social, there's things for consumers, there's things for the enterprise. But I'll give you a very simple example that is not that complicated. Just going back to the conversation we just had.
Yeah.
It's no longer a technology challenge for you to be able to render a person right in front of your eyes. And then with a bunch of sensors you can put on glasses, how you learn about, with artificial intelligence, how you learn about your face, your facial movements and facial expressions. You can render yourself on the other side. So you can actually change how we do a simple thing as having a phone call or a video call. So I think there's a lot of applications that technology can solve. Plus, you know, the enterprise applications with Microsoft doing the HoloLens. I think what company Meta is going to be doing and this evolution of social. So we believe it's going to be as big as phones.
So we're doing this, Cristiano Amon. Congratulations on everything, and thanks so much for the time.
Thank you. Pleasure talking to you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Cristiano and Molly, for that really great animated discussion. Thanks so much. Cristiano, we very much look forward to your leadership advancing our industry's priorities in the coming year as you're acting as SIA chair. A great supporter in Washington is Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Senator Schumer has prepared a short greeting for us. He's our second surprise guest. Here he is.
Hi, everyone. This is Senator Chuck Schumer, and thank you so much to the Semiconductor Industry Association for the chance to share a brief message. And my message is simple. The semiconductor industry is the lifeblood of the modern economy, and we must work to strengthen it here at home in the weeks, months, and years ahead. A generation ago, the U.S. produced more than a third of the world's chip supply. Now, fewer than 12% of semiconductors are made in America, while other countries like China and Taiwan have lapped us in production. This hurts American workers, American consumers, and American national security. The current chip shortage shows us just how dangerously vulnerable we are. Our military relies on chips. Medical devices rely on chips. Cars, refrigerators, and other household appliances require chips. And the current shortages mean Americans are facing higher prices and longer delays. And American manufacturing, American innovation are suffering. That's why I've made investment in the semiconductor industry a top priority. As you know, I led the effort to authorize the CHIPS federal manufacturing and R&D incentives in last year's defense authorization. And earlier this year, I successfully passed through the Senate $52 billion to implement those semiconductor programs as part of my U.S. Innovation and Competition Act. I'm working hard as Majority Leader to negotiate with the House to pass USICA and the CHIPS funding so the President can sign this critical legislation into law before the end of the year. The Senate will soon also take up President Biden's Build Back Better legislation, which includes an advanced manufacturing investment credit to support domestic semiconductor manufacturing. The credit is based on the FABS Act and will provide a tax credit to help pay for investments in semiconductor facilities and equipment. My efforts to build the domestic semiconductor industry are driven by a desire to secure our nation and address the chip shortage, but also to build on New York's leadership in the chip industry. There is no better place to invest in semiconductor production than New York. New York offers a vast array of shovel-ready sites. Luther Forest in the Capital Region near Albany, Marcy Nano Center in the Mohawk Valley near Utica, White Pine in the Syracuse area, and Stamp in Western New York, located equidistant between Buffalo and Rochester. These sites all offer the nation's best semiconductor supply chain and ecosystem, and top-notch universities to train your workforce and advance the next generation of R&D, as well as superior water and power infrastructure to support production. As you consider where to invest, I want you to know that as Senate Majority Leader, you would have a powerful ally to deliver what you need, either in New York or Washington, D.C. And I'll make every effort to personally fight for creating jobs in New York. So thank you all for letting me share a message and for your partnership. We're working to support you, to lift your industry up, and and please let me know whatever I can do.
I'm suspecting that at least two elected officials in this room would take issue with some of the assertions there. As all of you may know, it's not at all advisable to get between Chuck Schumer and his love for New York State. But just for the record, when it comes to which states are the best place to produce chips and design them, SIA is an equal opportunity employer. Now it's time to present the 2021 University Research Awards to two very distinguished professors from Stanford University this year who have made outstanding contributions to the semiconductor research. Dr. Subhashish Mitra and Dr. Boris Merman. Before I recognize professors and welcome them to the stage, I'd like to thank our partners at the Semiconductor Research Corporation, and in particular, SRC CEO Todd Youngkin. Where are you, Todd? I think you're over there somewhere. Todd and his team have identified these accomplished university researchers as candidates for this award. University research is absolutely critical to our industry, the tech sector, and our country. Now we'll take a moment to recognize our two award winners and then welcome them to accept the award and say a few words. Dr. Mitra will receive the award for excellence in semiconductor technology research. He is being recognized for his pioneering work in design and test of integrated circuits, reliable computing systems, and 3D nanosystems that have advanced the fields of robust computing, EDA, nanotechnologies, and nanosystems. His work has influenced almost every contemporary electronic system and inspired research initiatives in multiple countries. Please give a round of applause to our first recipient of the 2021 University Research Award, Professor Mitra.
Thank you, SIA and SRC, for this tremendous honor. And it's my privilege to accept this honor, especially in a special event that celebrates the achievements of Jensen Huang and my colleague Boris Merman. I dedicate this award to my students, my industrial and academic colleagues, my mentors and teachers, and especially my PhD thesis advisor. And thanks to organizations such as SRC, DARPA, and the NSF that provided insightful support that enabled a lot of research results that have been mentioned before. And last but not the least, thanks to my family for their support, love, and sacrifice. Thank you again.
So these awards are good for putting on the wall and good for weightlifting. They're quite substantial. Thanks again and congrats. Dr. Boris Merman will receive the award for excellence in semiconductor design research. He's being recognized for his thought leadership and groundbreaking advances in mixed signal integrated circuit design with a special emphasis on sensor interfaces, data converters, high-speed communication, and machine learning. So please join me in congratulating our next recipient, the 2021 University Research Award, Professor Boris Merman. Please come on up here.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you very much, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking the Semiconductor Research Corporation and the SIA for this very great honor. The SIA and SRC are not only recognizing my work tonight, they have already been very helpful over the years in supporting my work and supporting my students, and I want to acknowledge this. I also need to thank the many people who have enabled me over the years. I'm going to keep the list short. It's only going to be 44. So first, I want to start with my first boss, Manfred Stein. He sent me to the United States to improve my IC design skill, as he saw how much damage I can do in 2-micron CMOS. And since then, I've stayed here. I want to thank my advisor, Bernhard Boser, my faculty mentor, Bruce Woolley, who was also a recipient of this award. And then I want to thank my 40 PhD graduates who have done more than 200 years of research to convince the committee or Todd to give me this award. Last but not least, I want to thank my wife, Yukiko, who's here in the audience, who was always with me during busy times that led to this award. Thank you.
All right, I think the Blondie walk-on music was the best. Thank you, and congrats again. Let's give both professors one more big round of applause. All right, as dessert arrives, now it's time to turn our attention to the presentation of the semiconductor industry's top honor. We'll start with a short video about the award's namesake, the great Robert Noyce. So people on my staff know that I'm not a very emotional guy, but every time I see that video every year, I must say I weep up a little bit. Now it's my honor to introduce the man of the evening, the recipient of the 2021 Robert N. Noyce Award. Jensen Huang is an icon in our industry. He founded NVIDIA in 1993 with 2 friends in a rented townhouse in Fremont, just up Interstate 880. 28 years later, he's not only one of the industry's longest-serving CEOs, he's also among its most successful. In 2017, he was named Fortune's Business Person of the Year. 2 years later, Harvard Business Review ranked him #1 on its list of world's 100 best-performing CEOs over the lifetime of their tenure. And in the past decade, NVIDIA has seen its market cap rise close to 100 times, making it the world's 8th most valuable company. NVIDIA, of course, started out in PC graphics. The company helped build the gaming market into the largest entertainment industry in the world. Most recently, deep learning ignited modern AI, with the GPU acting as the brain of computers, robots, and self-driving cars that perceive and understand the world. In an indication of how relevant for the world this has become, Jensen's keynote last week at the company's GCT event has been watched more than 25,000 times. Really. And I don't think half of those were done by his wife Lori, who's here tonight. AI professor Andrew Ng perhaps said it best in his profile of Jensen for Time's recent list of world's 100 most influential people. He wrote, "Jensen is among the world's most technically savvy CEOs. He's also a compassionate steward of his employees and a generous supporter of education in science and technology. With still emerging AI technologies creating an insatiable hunger for more computation, Jensen's team is well positioned to keep driving technological advances for decades to come." Jensen's colleagues at NVIDIA have prepared a short video to congratulate him. Here it is.
I first met Jensen when I was heading up all product development at Adobe. And we had heard about this company, NVIDIA, that wanted to do everything graphics on a chip. And I had heard even at that point that he was a very persuasive executive.
It became very clear in the first meeting that Jensen was a very charismatic young guy who had a vision for creating an important company.
When you meet somebody who's very bright and self-deprecating and funny and has already in their life demonstrated a lot of perseverance and pluck, I just knew we wanted to be in business with these guys.
Actually, Steve Jobs told me I ought to go speak to Jensen with what I was interested in. Jensen walks in, says hi, puts his hand in his pocket, and pulls out a couple of new chips. And he goes, "Look at what I have. Look how cool this is. Look at what this can do." That was my introduction.
The first time I met him, someone told me that this guy is the CEO of NVIDIA. I looked at him, he just looked like any engineer. He is really an engineer's CEO, in my opinion.
When I chat to him, he can still speak with deep knowledge and technical precision about hardware and software matters, about neural network architectures, for example. One surprise to me, he took me to a sushi restaurant and he spoke with surprisingly deft precision about sushi, which I totally did not expect. There are probably many more surprises for all to discover about Jensen in the future as well.
A few years ago, he came to Toronto and gave a talk. And I realized he was someone who could think very quickly on his feet. He said that NVIDIA realized in 2012 they had a scientific supercomputer for doing deep learning. And I pointed out that we knew that in 2009. And so he promptly gave me, right there in the lecture, their very latest special edition GPU that had 32 gigabytes of memory. Suddenly, we got this huge speed up. And all the things we wanted to do now worked because we could compute so much faster. The GPUs were like every graduate student having his own supercomputer. And that was amazing.
The GPU itself became a compute platform, an open platform where others could come in and innovate. And of course, that was the secret to our success as we coupled our CPUs to the GPUs in both the PlayStation 3 platform, but also the Summit and Sierra supercomputers.
NVIDIA has transformed the company from being just a 3D graphic card company to be a platform business that truly influenced every aspect of our lives.
Adobe and NVIDIA have had this amazing relationship, and I think it stems from the fact that Jensen really takes the time to understand what Adobe's objectives are and how NVIDIA can help accomplish that. And together, frankly, how we can create magic.
Jensen's initial presentation to us that we need to be doing AI for detecting early disease, we never even thought about doing it. It wasn't like, we were doing it, we were gonna do it. It wasn't until after he left that I spoke to Bert Vogelstein at Hopkins, and the next thing you knew, the Lustgarten Foundation was funding us. And I think that's really what Jensen brings to you, is listening to what you need and helping you come up with the solutions that'll benefit you.
For Jensen, it's the love of technology and what it can do for other people. And it comes through, you see it, it's genuine.
Jensen, more than anyone, shined a light into the future. He took what looked like science fiction to dreaming and then to building.
A lot of the progress in AI over the last decade would not have been possible if not for Jensen's visionary leadership. I think Jensen's impact on the semiconductor industry, on AI, and through that on the world is almost incalculable. Congratulations, Jensen, on this very well-deserved award.
Wow, what a terrific video to Jensen, tribute to Jensen. In a moment, I'd like to welcome him to the stage to accept the award, and then he'll sit down for a keynote conversation with a special guest. With that, please join me in congratulating our friend, a giant in our industry, and the 2021 recipient of the Robert N. Noyce Award, Jensen Huang.
I really enjoy this.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cristiano, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
John, thank you. You did say this would weigh a lot, and I was thinking this would be crystal, but I don't think it weighs as much as crystal. That was a joke.
So, Jensen, I just want to say, Jensen, that this is crystal. So let me just take it away from you. There we go.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, so you're going to sit over there, I think, Jensen, and we'll talk to you. Yep. Okay. There we go.
Are we allowed? Are we? What's?
You're going to sit over there, that far. You know what?
You know, John, I feel after that video, the best thing I should do is to say absolutely nothing. Because, why ruin a perfectly good legacy? There's not possible anything I could say that could be smarter than everything they say.
I think that's not quite true. We're going to find out in a little bit. Congratulations, Jensen, on this very well-deserved honor. I see the wine.
Could I pour your drink?
I think you ordered has arrived. Maybe I can sit down and enjoy some of that myself, but I think we have another guest here. As you get yourself situated, what's that?
This is for someone else?
I'd like to introduce another special guest, the man who will join Jensen on stage in a moment to begin our keynote presentation. John Markoff is a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who wrote for the New York Times' Science and Technology beat for nearly 3 decades. And he has written many top books on technology and computing, including Cyberpunk, Outlaws and Hackers on the Computer Frontier, Takedown, The Pursuit and Capture of America's Most Wanted Computer Outlaw, and What the Dormouse Said, How the 60s Counterculture Shaped the Computer Industry. Please join me in welcoming a giant in journalism, John Markoff.
Questions for you.
Well, let me start first.
John,
thank you very much. Here's to your
considering how long
award.
we've served this industry, we deserve a drink.
Thank you, Jensen.
May I, before we start, there's a couple things. Tonight turned out a lot differently than I expected.
So,
no way, John.
it's great to be outside of the Zoom frame, actually. And
I know, but let me say something. I thought this was my night. So first of all, there are several things. I wrote a speech. It's an hour and a half. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm not kidding. I wrote a very, very good speech. I didn't know how tonight was going to go, and I didn't know whether you were going to have good questions.
I do have a couple questions.
Okay, all right. So I wrote a speech. Well, here's the thing. Look, can I just make an observation? Tonight didn't turn out the way I thought. Several reasons. First of all, I want to say that Cristiano is the perfect chair for the SIA. He's the perfect person. Yeah. he's the perfect person to advocate for our industry. And let me tell you why. I connected some dots tonight. I was trying to figure out, how is it possible that Cristiano knew every single regulator on the planet, that by the time I got there to tell him about my story on ARM, he was already there advocating against it.
This is going to be a tough act. Can we go back a little farther?
Hang on a second. Am I right? Am I right? We are, based on my experience, and this is a personal one, based on my personal firsthand experience, we are going to be well served. We are going to be well served. But Cristiano, you have a job, man. It's the SIA. I'm just kidding.
I want to find out something about
So
the early Jensen.
First of all, you guys know that John, very few people know the history of the computer industry than the two of us. We grew up in this industry. This has been our whole life. We're both students of it. We've served it our entire lives, and so.
So one of the things I wanted to get at is you grew up in Beaverton, and I noticed you went to Aloha High School.
I did, yeah.
And what was interesting to me is you ended up in the Valley. And you must have grown up about 5 minutes from Tektronix. So how come you came to Silicon Valley?
Well, I applied. I applied to Tektronix. I think, honey, how many times did I apply? Was it 10? So I think I applied 10 times for an internship. I was rejected every time. And Lori applied once, and she was immediately accepted. and ended up bussing tables.
This is your job at Denny's, or I thought that was during high school?
I was in high school and college when during the summers I busted tables and washed dishes. I did a lot of bathrooms. I did more bathrooms than any CEO in the history of CEOs. And I just got to tell you, Denny's has extraordinary bathrooms.
But you got past that.
Not really. It all came back just now that you mentioned it.
So you also grew up in a time, I think I've seen that you said that you were a gamer in high school, even earlier.
I think I was playing games, and I think on the other side must have been Gates, because he spoke about playing Star Trek on these teletype mainframes.
Yeah.
And I spent all my time programming programs of Star Trek and playing against people out there that you didn't know, and programming Worm on the Apple II, if you remembered.
I do. So there were already networks. You grew up in a networked world. You were involved in BBSs. What was your first contact with the pre-internet?
Well, when I went to Aloha High School, I was a very good student, and I had very few friends.
I
had no friends. I exaggerated just now for because this was a special night, so I thought I would exaggerate a little. I had no friends, and so I joined this club, and this club was a computer club, and so there were two other friendless people there, and the three of us became good friends, and then we started, and then I discovered that they were quite popular with other clubs. We were all three of us were in the computer club, the math club, and the science club.
Did you have your own PC at home, or did you go to the club?
No, we had no money. I mean, my parents, my parents made a great decision. My father had a vision that we would grow up in the United States. Sold literally everything they had, come to the United States, put me in a private school, my older brother and me, and they could afford. They chose the private school based on price, because as you know, price matters. And so we went to the most affordable private school in America. And it happened to be in Oneida, Kentucky. And if you looked up Oneida, Kentucky right now, you'll see it. It has a population of 0. And it was about the same size when I was there. and there was a reform school there, turned out, that was open to international students. So we went there. But we had no the concept, John. I mean, I didn't grow up in a rich family like you.
I grew up near rich families. I didn't.
You grew up in Palo Alto. I know how you grew up. Yeah, Silver Spoon.
So you arrived at AMD. You did get a job in the Valley. What made you pick AMD?
Well, I was a good student and I did well in school. I guess I was 16 when I graduated, 17. I skipped 2 grades in school, and so I was quite young when I graduated. I interviewed with companies that came on campus, and I had 2 choices that I really loved. I was actually quite enamored with TI because good gosh, the campus was huge. Rich, in order to go from one interview to another, I had to take a cart underground, and I believe the zip code was different. and so I was blown away by that idea that a company could be that big. And then I had 2 choices, LSI Logic and AMD, and I chose AMD because their poster was really great. That was it.
And you became a microprocessor designer? What generation?
It was a poster of a microprocessor, the world's first 32-bit ECL microprocessor. And I went to the microprocessor design team, and I learned an enormous amount. I realized how terrible it was to design chips by hand. And I was the last generation that did the chips by hand, and I discovered this program at Berkeley called Espresso and Equintod, and some of then shortly after that, I met some people that quite frankly changed my perspective of how to design chips. Art DeGius is here, and Deirdre is here, and Chris Malachowski that I met during that time, thinking about structured design and high-level design and how chips should be designed. And basically, you're designing hardware with software. And it completely changed how I saw the world.
How quickly did you go back to Stanford to get your master's?
I wanted to go to Stanford almost right away. It was the reason that it came down. I just couldn't afford it. I chose the most affordable school. I thought that was a fairly good equation. My dad, we just didn't have that much money, and so I went to Oregon State. As soon as I could, I came down to Stanford, and I had a choice between working at AMD and having AMD pay for it versus paying for it ourselves, and that seemed like a no-brainer, and so AMD paid for my college education. I really liked that, and but it's hard work. It's hard work. You have to go to school and also. And Lori and I had known each other since college, and so we as soon as she graduated, we got married. And so we were juggling several things at the same time. But the thing that was really nice about working and going to school at the same time, everything that Hennessy was teaching, everything that Bob was teaching, as somebody mentioned Bob earlier, everything that Bob was teaching made a lot of sense to me. It was real. It wasn't a conceptual idea what I was learning, but it was all very real.
When you started graduate school, it was after both the MIPS and the Sun era. They had both been launched?
It was right before that, and it was right happening. It was exactly during the RISC War, and it was you remember it was MIPS and Spark and the 860 and the 960 and the x86, and of course there was also the Motorola stuff, but nonetheless, those were the core, those were the top topics, and this is the genius. And you have to, whoever made that decision. If Gelsinger was here, he would remind me that it was him. But Pat, are you here? Pat's not. Okay, if Gelsinger were here, he would. Is this being recorded? So anyways, if Gelsinger was here, he would remind us that they made an extraordinary decision, John. Think about this. Everybody was talking about RISC, and RISC, as you know, is a pipelined microprocessor. x86 was a micro-coded microprocessor. The micro-coded pipeline, the micro-coded machine was slow. I mean, the only virtue it had going for it was. So anyhow, x86 was micro-coded and was terribly slow. And so here comes RISC. It was leaner, it was faster, it was better, it was more compilable. It thought about software while it was thinking about hardware, and so there were a lot of good things from a computer science perspective. And then all of a sudden, one day, Intel killed off the two better architectures.
Remember, RISC was the one time that Andy Grove yelled at me during an interview.
John, it was genius. You guys know, you guys know, right? It was genius. Nobody has a clue. The two of us, we're just going to have to talk between the two of us.
Where did NVIDIA's DNA come from? You know, Silicon Valley companies beget companies. What DNA did you pull together to create NVIDIA?
Well, Chris and Curtis. You know, Chris and Curtis. Chris and Curtis were the two brightest engineers, computer scientists that I have ever met to this day, and I was explaining to Governor earlier that luck has a lot to do with success, and my luck was having met them, and somehow they decided that it was essential that I join them when they left their job, and I remember thinking, I love my job, you hate your job, I'm doing well, you're doing crap, and for what reason do I leave with you? And so
had they already targeted graphics?
Oh yeah, I think that first of all, computer graphics is really about computer science, and computer graphics is one of the most complex part of computer science. In order to do well in computer graphics, you have to know everything about computer science. It's really about computing altogether. It's simulation, it's high I/O, it's high processing, it's just a really complicated thing. It's the only thing that you can, in order to do well in computer graphics, you have to understand the application, you have to understand mathematics, you have to understand the system stack, you have to understand everything. It's not like a CPU in the sense that a C compiler can target the instruction set or the microcode of the CPU. In the case of a computer graphics stack, it's a full stack. And so the company was a computing company from the very beginning, and all of us love computing. All of us love building computers. And I was fortunate to have started the company with two visionary people.
So you had a really great quarter, and Wall Street was Wall Street was only negative about one thing.
We just covered 1993 to like yesterday.
I realize we're about to run out of time. I have a couple more things I want to ask you.
I thought tonight was our night.
It is your night. It's definitely your night. They seem to want to keep me on a short leash.
I'm paid for more than 15 more minutes.
Oh, that's true. We have more time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't care.
So
why do we care?
So the only thing that seemed to be a negative was your automotive business. What's going to put your automotive business back on track?
My automotive business, it is absolutely on track. Why would you say something like this? It's such a hurtful thing on this day. All right, so first of all, we've been working on automotive for 12 years. It's been a $0 billion business for over a decade. It will remain at $0 billion for hopefully not another decade. But here's, John, this is what I saw a decade plus ago. That the car is going to be a computer. It has to be. And someday, at the time I didn't have the technology, I tried. Someday, at the time, it worked terribly. Computer vision worked terribly at the time. And we did a lot of work in computer vision. It was just terrible. And so we would never let it drive the car. And we kept searching, and then one day we found this incredible breakthrough. And it happened with AlexNet. And we realized that maybe human written software has limits. That there's sometimes that you need a computer to go write software.
Yeah.
And the observation a decade ago that in the future computers and software will write software that no humans can completely revolutionized how we saw the world. How I see protein engineering, how I see climate science, how I see computer vision, natural language understanding, how I see almost everything now. That we still need brilliant scientists to come up with the structure of the neural nets and the architecture of the neural nets. But if we had the support, the ability to have supercomputers go help us write the software. And so if you look at what we are today, NVIDIA is surely the only company in this room that has 5 supercomputers in the top 500.
I noticed that. Yeah, that's impressive.
We built hundreds of millions of dollars of computers with no customers for it. And the logic, of course, John, was that if we believed that computers was going to help us write software, then why wouldn't we go build the most advanced computers? And that was a good breakthrough.
You announced recently an infrastructure called Quantum 2.
I never once answered your questions about auto, did I?
Well, you kind of did.
No, I just wanted to just show that, Rick Cassidy, as you guys know, was on CNBC, and he did a really fantastic job, by the way. I look up Rick Cassidy, CNBC. I thought it was masterful, and we were admiring his performance, and I just want to say, you're not the only one who's got it. The ability to not answer questions is a... Ladies and gentlemen, please watch CNBC. Rick Cassidy answered no questions at all.
So the Quantum 2 technology is this fabric on which you can design a next generation of supercomputers. Is it significant enough that there will be a machine in that top 10 list that will be based on Quantum 2?
Oh yeah. John, the next generation supercomputers are going to be very different than the last. If you look at the current supercomputers, and it's designed for good reasons, and it goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to Cray, and I'm sure that John Kelly has something to do with this. John's sitting right there. Architecting some of the supercomputers that process important codes that we still have to run today, high energy physics. And high energy physics, as you know, is vital to national defense and the reservoir of atomic weapons that we have, and trying to calculate neutron migration.
Yep.
And these high energy physics problems are here, and it needs to be correlated from generation to generation to generation, and the traditional way of doing mathematics is really important. However, the way that we want to solve climate science can't be solved that way. And so we have to find a way to retain the history of high performance computing, but do mathematics in a way, do numerics in a way that allows us not to get 10 times performance every 5 years, which is something that we'd love to enjoy for another 30 years if we could. I doubt it, but in order for us to solve some of the problems that we want to solve, we need a million X speed up. A million X. Not a million times in 30 years, a million times in the next several years.
How do you get a million times if you can't write on Moore's law?
Well, there's several ways you could do it. The first thing that you have to do, you have to take the entire software stack and you have to refactor it, rewrite it in such a way to take advantage of the way that we do computation today, which is accelerated computing, number one. The moment that you do that, the wonderful thing is that exact same software could be scaled out to a giant system because it's now been parallelized. Most of the software in the past is based on the best CPUs of the time, which is single-threaded. It's hard to accelerate. It's hard to find instruction-level parallelism, which is the challenge of CPUs, with single-threaded applications. And so what we have to do is we have to redesign it. You have to think about the algorithms. You have to think about the mathematics on first principles and re-engineer the software altogether. The moment you do that, John, all of a sudden, not only can you accelerate with GPUs, you can accelerate with multiple GPUs, you can accelerate with multiple nodes in a GPU, and you can run these giant systems. And then here comes the amazing thing. This is when I met Andrew Ng. This is when I met Jeff Hinton. The first time that they came to see me was when they asked, how can they take the software that was running so slowly, and if they could figure out a way to run it way faster. At the time, this takes a month, and they like to do it in basically a day. Well, a month to a day is a big speed up. And so we took some of our brightest computer scientists and we rewrote deep learning. We rewrote deep learning so that now you could take deep learning and run it across an accelerator from one CPU core to thousands of GPU cores, but then all of a sudden to scale it up to large systems. We sped up AI, John, by 1,000,000 times.
So is deep learning what people used to call an embarrassingly parallel problem, or is it a hard
It's an embarrassingly parallel problem if you could make it parallel. Otherwise, is a horrific problem. And so we made a parallel, and this is the giant breakthrough. This is the benefit of technology innovation. So at first, we solved computer vision, and we're delighted by that. What used to take several months now takes less than a second, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How important is it for...
No, wait, listen. I want to tell you something. Cristiano, don't listen to this. No, I want to tell you something. I'm serious. And so what happened was, then deep learning made such incredible progress. And in the last 3 years, something really big happened. Researchers were able to come up with 2 fundamental breakthroughs. These are researchers at Brown University, researchers at NVIDIA, researchers at Caltech. And I'm telling you guys something that if you don't mind, just don't tell anybody else. It's a big deal. In the last 3 years, what happened was this. We figured out a way to let a deep learning neural network learn the laws of physics, and for it to make predictions that obey the laws of physics. Think about that for a second. You now have a neural network that can learn universal function. It's a universal function approximator for the very first time. Any partial differential equation system it can learn, and this is the miracle. Whatever it predicts after that, it obeys the laws of physics. It's called a PIN, a physics-informed neural network. Well, the thing that's amazing is this. All of a sudden, Navier-Stokes, which we know mathematically has no closed solution, Navier-Stokes can now run 10,000 times faster. Now, 10,000 times, I don't know the last time anybody saw 10,000 times, but you take 10,000 times, you put it on top of a computer that can scale out to 10,000 GPUs on a processor that has 10,000 more cores than a CPU. Well, 10,000 times 10,000 times 10,000 is a big number.
That's a super important point. That's an example of human creativity. It's not an example of this industrial process that you get a free ride on. And human creativity seems to be more episodic. When you get it, it's great, but you can't predict it the way you could predict Moore's law. Where are you on?
I completely agree with you, and John, I got to tell you, You're so wrong.
Elaborate.
There was nothing free ride about Moore's Law. You know that, right? There were a lot of us,
a
bus
lot of blood
boys
was
down
spilled.
there, washing dishes, all right, and making Moore's Law come true. There were a lot of hard work on the bottom.
But the crank turned for decades.
But my point is this. There were a lot of people underneath the chip, underneath the C compiler, doing all that hard work, right?
Yep.
Here's my point. My point is that for the very first time, the law of innovation is no longer limited to C compiler below. For the very first time, we can refactor the processor, the mathematics, as well as something like PIN.
Yep.
And as a result, we could get that million-x speed up. Now, the reason why I'm so excited about this, John, is because now there are these gigantic problems that we see out there, gigantic problems that we know are mathematically intractable for a very long time. All the things that people talk about for quantum computing. That's 30 years out. That's 20 years out. We'd like to solve some of those problems today, in our generation. Like, for example, climate science. And so we need to figure out a way to do climate modeling a little earlier, because by the time that quantum computing comes along, it might not be needed. And so we've got to get on top of this thing today. And so I'm so excited about the, I don't know if you could tell, but I'm so excited about this thing. We're going to go lay down a few $1 billion. I know that we could go and buy some carbon footprint back.
Yeah.
Okay? I know that I could put some money down and go buy some carbon offsets. We can all do that. And we should do that. So what? Big deal. Who shouldn't? Well, that doesn't take advantage of our superpowers. Our superpowers, NVIDIA's superpowers, is that we know this fact, and then we have the ability to build the computers, solve the mathematics, and go build a computer that help us predict climate science. Yeah. Now, the reason why it's so important is because something that you know very well, and it's really core to you. If we all believe in the common truth, if we don't believe in a common truth, if we don't believe in a common truth, let me go the other way. If we don't believe in a common truth, it divides us. When we believe in a common truth, it unites us. We can't solve a problem 50 years from now that we can't see, that we can't feel, if we don't believe in a common truth. Religion pulls that together for people. Core values brings that together for people. Cultures bring that together for people. A sense of purpose brings that together for people. We have an opportunity, John, if we could figure out a way to combine some of this technology, get that million-x, billion-x speed up, to go simulate climate science so that we can bring together a common truth. We might be able to unite everybody to go do something about it tomorrow.
I think that's a powerful view of the world, but it raises, we're almost out of time. I wanted to ask you.
I'll pay for more.
People need to go home sometime tonight, too.
No. You know what they're going to do after this, right?
Oh, there's a reception.
Exactly.
You're right. Okay. You're keeping them from the reception. Can you apply that?
You know what I'm going to do after this? The moment we're done here, in another 8 seconds, I'm going to go call Rich Templeson because I need some chips.
Thank you.
Rich, don't go away. I love you, man.
So we're now officially over time.
I'm so happy about that.
Can you make that same argument about the metaverse?
Look,
or in your case, the omniverse.
The reason why we can make a contribution to climate science is because of the metaverse. And this is the way it's going to work. We're going to go build a digital twin of the Earth. It's going to be gigantic. This is going to be the largest AI supercomputer on the planet. We're going to put some of the brightest computer scientists, the brightest physical scientists and climate scientists on the planet to go and use that computer to predict climate science.
Who are you doing this project for, and when will the computer be up
I am
and running?
funding it ourselves. Okay. Zero funding from any government. However, Governor, if you would like to I understand that climate science is an imperative in Indiana. $200 million. That's all I'm asking. $200 million. And if I'm sure New York will be affected. I'm pretty sure that New York would care about the future of the climate. $200 million. If I can get $200 million 10 times, I can fund a couple of years.
When is your goal to have this computer?
I'm going to get it up and
online?
running in a couple of years. I'm going to put it in a place that it has renewable energy. I hope that it might be next to our nuclear power plant, but hopefully it's in Finland and something like that. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all the data that's being collected in satellites over the last 10 years. We're going to ingest. This is the part that I haven't figured out yet, John. How do you ingest hundreds of petabytes practically a day into a supercomputer? The rest of it, we kind of have pieces put together. We're going to use a new way of doing physics. We're going to learn from the data. We're going to predict the future. And it's going to be multi-physics. We're going to do the physics of the oceanic physics, land physics, ice physics, atmospheric physics, human forcing, chemistry. We're going to take all of that, put it all in, simulate the Earth 10, 20, 30, 100 years from now, try to figure out which one of the regions are going to be most affected by what kind of adverse, diverse, intense climate and weather, and see if we could figure out a way to alert people of areas that needs to be adapted tomorrow, and in the case of mitigation, be able to simulate some of the implications of that. And then we'll just keep taking the satellite data, keep ingesting it, keep fine-tuning our AI model, keep predicting 100 years out, keep ingesting, keep predicting, keep 100 years out. And then over time, people will realize that the variance, the uncertainty continues to reduce. And before you know it, John, we are the climate channel, not the weather channel, the climate channel.
I love it.
We just have to check in every 10 years. We're not going to have that many viewers.
Let me ask you a last question.
It's not a business model. I'm not advocating it.
It's a compelling vision. What would you like
I feel
NVIDIA
just
to
a
look?
drip of sarcasm. It's going to take several billion dollars to do this.
It's the best of all of the metaverse visions I've heard in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, and it's going to be done in metaverse. It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's NVIDIA going to look like in the next half decade?
Well, I'll be here to talk about it. So you guys know that all of you are serving a term. I'm serving life.
That's it.
So just, when your children are running your companies, I'll be here. And I'll, talk about,
your climate model.
Just, like, your dad, Rich, was a great guy. He didn't have enough chips, but he tried.
So you're going to be here.
The whole world relied on him.
Are you confident that Silicon Valley will be here? Are you optimistic about the Valley a decade from now?
Well, less so. I'm completely confident in the culture that we have. John, you and I have been here a long time. The culture of Silicon Valley is truly unique, and it's in the electricity, it's in the air, it's in just all the people that we know, how we carry on. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We take our work really seriously. Somebody said earlier, 1993. What did you think NVIDIA was going to be? I literally said, and John, you'd appreciate that. I said in 1993 that NVIDIA was going to be the construction workers of the 21st century. And what I meant by that is that the technology that we build would become so vital to society that we are its foundation, that we are the construction workers of the 21st century. And we are that, and John, I think you'd appreciate that the contributions Silicon Valley made in shaping computer science, is profound, and it does it today. I can list off, if you guys are interested, 27 things that that we did recently, and so I have a lot of hope for what we can do. I also think that the concept of Silicon Valley doesn't have to be geologic. It doesn't have to be geographic. And I wonder if we carry that to the best of our ability and in fact, if you will, in a positive way, the innovative sensibility all over the country now that we can work anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, because I am just a super fan of the way that Silicon Valley works and why it works, the psychology, its attitude. We have to be mindful to keep it in check so that we don't take ourselves too seriously. And sometimes I feel like the newer generations, they become too self-important, and we just have to be mindful of that. And if we're not so self-important, we're humble, and we greet the world with humility. Recognize that we're not here alone, and we're here to serve everyone else. To the extent that we can do that, I think we're going to thrive.
Thank you. I appreciate the evening.
John, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Thank you. All right.
Is this mine?
We're going to deliver that.
Okay.
You just stay away from that.
No, I did say that to be very, very honest, I'm accepting this award on behalf of all the employees, and obviously this represents their body of work, and all the executives that are here, the E-staff that are here, and this is your body of work that this award represents. However, I like to keep this at my house.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm probably going to get into some hot water here, but Jensen, I don't know if we can ask you back here because, geez, you're a hard act to follow. Oh, my God. Thanks, Jensen and Jean, for that great and really memorable discussion. So that concludes our program for tonight. Everyone is encouraged to continue the evening at our post-party hosted by platinum sponsors, AMD, Deutsche Bank, IBM, Intel, Micron, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Salesforce, and Western Digital. The reception will begin momentarily at the Market Street Terrace, where we were just at before for the early reception. We hope you'll stop by and check out some cool, pun intended, ice sculptures, and continue enjoying the evening. Last, but definitely not least, I'd like to take a moment to thank the entire team at SIA for pulling this evening together and for doing an incredible job, throughout this very demanding year to advance the goals of this amazing industry. So Team SIA, please stand up and take a bow. These are the guys that are bringing you $52 billion. So, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hope to see you at the after-dinner reception.